disappear for a week and the whole game changes. I am into coffee though. I tend to make my coffee kind of an old-fashioned way on the stove rather than a coffee machine. It's just the way I like it. I think it brings out the flavor a little bit more. Plus I customize it with my own stuff. Anyway, Magnus here, and I've been out for a good couple of weeks. I've actually been pretty sick, and a couple of life changes have been going on, so I tried to focus more on me and less on the video, just for a short amount of time, though as I was connecting online and I would see things pop up, I constantly wanted to update it, but before I could do that, I needed to get a few things in my life straightened out. So with that out of the way, now so much has happened. So what's happened? Nikon has jumped into the mirrorless game, and so has Canon. Now they had mirrorless, but now they're into full frame mirrorless. And then what did Panasonic do? They've been mirrorless for a while. They're like, heck, we're gonna jump in too. Full frame mirrorless from Panasonic as well. Sony's got competition now. So what do I think about these cameras? Check it out. Behind you with like the clouds, the sky and everything, and still be able to see. Then we've got the Rode video mic. Here we go. M50. What do you guys think? Hey, Magnus here, and as you saw in the intro, let's talk about this new competition between the new mirrorless full frame lineup that we've got from Canon, from Nikon, and from Panasonic. Now, I've already addressed some of Nikon's mirrorless lineup, but now we've got this whole world of competition, especially after the conference in Photokina, where you had announcements from Panasonic announcing their kind of spec sheet hidden new full frame camera, and from Canon, their EOS-R, which we've seen a lot. We've got the full specs. Now, which one of these is going to take the reins from Sony? Will any of them be able to take the reins? We're still waiting on an A7S III, and that's been pretty much a long wait. So I think Sony wants to pull out of the gate ahead of the competition, since they're ahead of the competition when it comes to full frame mirrorless camera lineup. I mean, they're a couple of generations ahead, where you've got Nikon and Canon who are pretty much playing catch up to Sony, which is a darn shame because they've been in the game for years. And Panasonic, who innovates for especially video shooters off of mirrorless cameras, now they're saying, hey, we're going to pump up a full frame. Now, I've spoken many times in the past of wanting all these specific features in a camera. Do any of these cameras come close, and which one do I think is my personal favorite choice when it comes to what I'd upgrade or at least start with? Because I've got to be honest, at least right now, from what I know of these three cameras, none of them are worth an upgrade for me personally. So I'll get that out of the way. But let's first talk about the closest one to my heart, the Canon EOS-R. Now the EOS-R, a lot of people call it like a mirrorless 5D, and in a lot of sense it is a mirrorless 5D because you've got the same or similar full frame sensor that the 5D Mark IV has. You've got dual pixel autofocus, but you've got a couple of exciting additions to that, which is the 4K is no longer the MJPEG codec, so they got away from that, and so you've got the H.264 file format off of that 4K in 150 megabits per second or 400 megabits per second. So that's interframe, which is great quality. You'll get a lot out of the camera, and you've got a flip screen, which is awesome. Unfortunately, it's still like the 5D Mark IV, got that 1.74 times crop, and the 4K is not DCI 4K, it's regular 3840 by 2160, so like the width is a little bit smaller. So it's got pros and cons, but because of that crop factor, it's very similar to the 5D Mark IV. In fact, it's a little bit smaller than the 5D Mark IV when it comes to the crop factor, because you don't get that full width of DCI 4K. So that's exciting. They missed the mark on actually using the full frame, yes, but they at least threw in Canon log, which you don't have to buy additionally from the camera. It actually comes with it. So that's a plus. And that dual pixel autofocus that it comes with is basically untouchable. So you do want that. That's an exciting camera. So Canon's full frame mirrorless camera, not bad. Is it worth upgrading? Probably not. But if you're going to start off with a camera, it's not a bad choice. Next, let's talk about Nikon Z6 and Z7. Now they do full frame 4K at 30 frames per second. And it's a pretty good video shooter. You get good quality colors. But what you're lacking is a flip screen. What you're also lacking is an incredible autofocus. In fact, the autofocus on Nikon's is, from what I've heard, not terrible, but not exactly great either. I might lean towards Canon more because of their amazing autofocus and because of the flip screen. So I think that's a great choice, at least for vloggers. And if you're doing 1080p for most of your videos anyway, you can get that off of the EOS-R and not have an issue and always be in focus. So that's amazing. Kind of beats out Nikon. Nikon did not impress me with their mirrorless lineup. But then the last announcement, according to what Panasonic is planning, now they haven't released the full specs yet, but Panasonic's doing a full frame camera. And this full frame camera, the S1 and the S1R, I'm going to specifically speak on the S1 because the S1 is designed mostly for video, according to Panasonic, but the S1 itself does 4K 60. Now, in a video previously, I was looking for a camera that did next level, that move on from 4K 30. And Panasonic's doing it, 4K 60 on a full frame sensor. Now, the one discussion that's a little difficult that we don't really know is it the full frame? Can you do full frame 4K internally off of the new camera? That's the question. Who knows? We don't really know yet, or will it crop in? Possibly might crop in, that's what the belief is, but if it doesn't, it gives you the full frame 4K 60. Now, I don't expect 10-bit 422 out of it, but if it's 30 or below, I do expect 10-bit 422 internally off of the Panasonic, since they already did it off of their GH5. And none of the other cameras really have 10-bit 422 like Panasonic does in their GH5, and one would expect it's going to be in their S1. Now, Canon, for example, on the 5D Mark IV, they did 8-bit 422 internally, but on the EOS-R, there is no 8-bit 422. It's 8-bit 420, but you can get 10-bit if you pull out from an external recorder. So they upgraded that HDMI slot, and you could output 10-bit 422 for your 4K recording and Canon log, so that is a huge plus. Something that you can't do off of the 5D Mark IV, but at least internally you get 8-bit 422. I'm not one to want to attach external recorders if I don't have to. So for that, Panasonic actually wins in that case. But out of the three cameras, my personal choice right now is if I was just starting out and I wanted a camera to kind of film what I needed, for me personally, because everyone's opinions can be different, I'd probably go for, this one's tough because I like the features in the Panasonic might have, although I don't know what they're going to have. What they might have sounds exciting. So the Panasonic itself could be great. Unfortunately, the Panasonic has a couple of downsides. First being the fact that GH5 has a flip screen, which is so helpful. But the new S1 is going to have a 3-axis tilt screen, so you can't really flip it out to face it in front of you. And it's like, why would you do that when a GH5, you're already doing it on the GH5? Why would you take away a feature that would actually be helpful for those that would actually buy the camera to use it? Doesn't make sense to me. And the other unfortunate thing is that they didn't go for phase detect autofocus, something that could compete with the dual pixel autofocus from the Canon. Now, we all know that the autofocus has struggled on the GH5. So when you're coming with the S1, now they do have an advanced autofocus system that they're planning to introduce, but it's still contrast detect autofocus, which is behind the game. The game right now, owned by Sony when it comes to eye autofocus. Eye autofocus is amazing on the Sony cameras. And Canon's dual pixel autofocus that captures your face no matter what. I'm going to walk out. walk right back in, and I'm boom, right back in focus. And I don't have to worry about that, especially when I'm working on one of these type of vlogs. So that's what you get off of the other cameras, but you can't get that off of a Panasonic. So those two features, you may have the best quality video ability to record, but if you can't get that footage in focus and you can't see yourself, making sure that you've got yourself in focus, it makes it difficult to record off of the Panasonic S1 if it can't support that. So that's a struggle. Then you've got Nikon, which their full frame mirrorless is unimpressive. And then you've got the Canon, where you can see that you're in focus and you can pretty much count on the fact that you are going to be in focus when you film yourself. Now, depending on what your need is, you might go elsewhere. But my personal preference and need would actually go towards the Canon EOS-R right now. But what's up with Sony? How are they going to respond with the A7S III? Now, one would think that it seems that rumors say that they're going to wait until a little bit later so they can add a few features that we might not even be expecting, which could make it an interesting buy. And if Sony does put something more than just 4K 30, and if Sony puts a flip out screen and a couple of card slots, I might actually not jump to Sony, because I'm going to keep my Canons, I'm going to keep my Panasonics, but I actually might purchase a Sony as well. So one of the downsides of actually a couple of these mirrorless cameras, speaking specifically of Canon and Nikon, is that they only put one card slot into both of these cameras. Why would you do that? I think that that's a fail, a serious fail. When it comes to video, it's rare to expect or to actually have dual recording. That's why you should probably have several cameras on set if you can possibly do that, so that you can have full control over video, and if one camera goes down, you've got another one recording all of the action. But Panasonic on the GH5 put two slots that you can do recording on both of them, video recording, and I think that's amazing and a huge advantage. And they did it, or they're planning to do it, on their S1. So they've got the right idea when it comes to that. So using a Panasonic is great if you're behind the camera and you have full control and full experience. And their IS, their image stabilization that they've built in, is one of the best. And Nikon did image stabilization. Canon did digital image stabilization, which isn't as good. Honestly, it's not good at all. They should have had image stabilization built into the sensor. But to each his own. Everybody has their camera for different reasons, and everyone's top can be different. But so far, out of these three cameras, excluding Sony, because I'm still waiting for the A7S III, you've got third place is the Nikon, second place Panasonic, and first place Canon, because Canon I can trust that I'm going to get a good shot for what my needs are. But what do you guys think? I know I've said a lot of things, I've thrown at you a lot of things, and I could be controversial, but what do you guys think? What's your opinion? Out of those three, what do you think is a top camera? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, like, share, and I'm glad to be back. It's been a rough couple of weeks. Still got a sore throat, but we'll get through it. You can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. See you guys later.